Welcome to On the Fly College Edition, a podcast presented by Playfly Sports. I'm your host, Gene DiFilippo. Playfly Sports is the full-service marketing and media company bringing digitally enabled innovations to the sports industry. Welcome to this week's edition of On the Fly. I'm your host, Gene DiFilippo, and our guest this week is Brent Jones, the very successful director of athletics at Troy University. Welcome, Brent. Thanks for being on our podcast.
Hey, it's great. It's an absolute privilege to be here talking with you today.
Well, you're a fairly new athletic director, and you have certainly had a busy first year at Troy. But before that, take us from you being a really good baseball player at Oglethorpe and your journey from then to the present time.
Absolutely. So I believe that you're all about your experiences, and experiential learning is extremely important. And so the two things that really I grew up with was education and how important that was. Grandmother that worked for the governor's office in the state of Georgia, grandfather who was a doctor, father who's a lawyer, mother who is an assistant principal, and on. I'm an only child. So education was so important in my family, but then athletics was as well. And I feel very honored to be able to have both of those pillars of my life, education and athletics, be really my chosen occupation. But I was in the transfer portal before people knew what the transfer portal was. I played Division I, II, and III college baseball, starting at UNC Asheville, going to Augusta State, and then finishing up at Oglethorpe University. I'm so appreciative of my experiences. I don't think I realized that at the time. And I'll give you an example. Well, why did you transfer so much? Well, I wanted to play, and I'd love the game of baseball. And on my high school graduation day, this tells you how old I am. It was in the paper. Bill Hilliard, the head coach who signed me at UNC Asheville, took the head job at Duke University. And I did not have a phone call for 2 to 3 weeks. No one reached out to me. I didn't know what that was. Did I lose my scholarship? Who was going to be our next head coach? It was snail mail back then, right? And back in 1999. And so that always stuck with me, to be able to have the empathy, to understand the process. So went to UNC Asheville for a year and a half, was redshirted, had 3 coaches in a year and a half, went to Augusta State, started my freshman year, got hurt my sophomore year. We thought some things were going to happen with some scholarships there. They had dropped men's soccer, so we weren't sure what was going to happen. And I transferred to Oglethorpe University my junior and senior year in Atlanta, Georgia. Is probably the best thing that ever happened for me. Small, private, liberal arts college, really focused on the academic standpoint. And to be able to play Division III baseball for the love of the game, play against some great schools, DePaul, Emory, Rose-Hulman, Sewanee University of the South, Millsaps, those type. It was great. It really was. And so to be able to have that, the hard work, the dedication, to be able to understand what goes into playing all 3 levels. I will tell you this, I'm really useful at cocktail parties and trivia, because there's very few schools I either hadn't heard of or played against or know where they're at because of my Division I, II, and III experience. And then I had an opportunity to go to Ole Miss. Received my master's degree there, worked there for 2 years in marketing, communications, worked there in sponsorships, revenue generation, and didn't really realize that I had a knack for this. But my senior year of college, I went around and put up flyers around campus promoting our games and coming to our games, helped our assistant coach go sell sponsorships that we'd be able to have programs and those type of things. Didn't really realize that that was a career of mine. And so I have 3 degrees, two are in undergrad education history. My master's is in secondary education, higher education. So I just have a love of learning and history and being able to play with athletics. And so being able to go to Ole Miss for 2 years, 2004 through 2006, worked for Coach Bianco, who's a mentor and a friend of mine, just won the national championship in baseball, is a great, great leader. Worked his baseball camps, worked with his sons as well there when they were very little. And now you see ones at LSU and Houston and Louisville. It's pretty exciting to see Did that for 2 years, received my master's, and then spent 5 years working for Sam Baker as the director of marketing, and then subsequently the assistant athletic director for Eagle Sports Marketing at Georgia Southern. That was when it was Division I AA, so FCS. Really probably one of 3 schools in the nation, powerhouses, had won 6 national championships, had led the nation in attendance. It was us, App State, James Madison at the time. To really, we were the biggest dogs out there. And so it was really fun to cut my teeth. I was 23 years old, 25 years old. I was one of the youngest full-time employees at Georgia Southern. Fun fact, some of my GAs were actually older than me. And so looking back on it, to be able to have that type of responsibility at a young age, thinking that I knew everything. And oh, by the way, I was selling corporate sponsorship sales. I was sponsorship fulfillment. I was marketing, advertising, social media, radio, TV, in-game promotions. Wouldn't have changed anything. Slept in my office a few times. Did that for 5 years. It was great. Met my wife there. She's a Georgia Southern graduate. Then moved on to Southern Miss and had a chance to work with Richard Giannini, who's a legend in the field, for 6 years. I got to work with him only for a year. But our first year, 2011, we went 12-2. And the next year, we went 0-12. When Larry Fedora left and went to UNC, there's only 2 schools that have ever done that. 12 wins, next year 12 losses, us and UCF. And so to really have to go back about building a brand, building a fan base, engaging, informing, communicating, really honed my skills there. I had 3 different presidents and 6 different ADs in a 6-year period when you count interims as well. So a lot of change, a lot of flux. My 2 kids were born there. Had the great opportunity to work with John Gilbert, who's at ECU, Bill McGillis, who's one of my mentors and good friends, who's now at University of San Diego. And so it was an exciting time period. It was a lot of challenge as well. You saw conference realignment hit Conference USA. And so we went from playing the UCFs of the world and the Tulanes and the Memphises. We went to playing the North Texases and MTSUs and FAUs. And so really trying to build that camaraderie back again. And so then I had an opportunity to work with Jeremy McLean for 2 years as he was the deputy AD at Southern Miss, came in over top of me. And we just hit it off. Great relationship. I consider him to be a brother of mine. And he got the job at Troy University, which I knew a lot of, being from Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's only 3 hours away from Atlanta. And I know of Troy back then where they were a blue-collar institution that would just beat up on everybody, very similar to Southern Miss with the brand. And he went there and did a really good job as an athletic director for about 1.5 years, and then called me over and said, hey, I'd like for you to be it was a new role in 2017. No one really had these deputy ADs of external operations. And so I was a senior associate at that point at Southern Miss, and to be able to work with Jeremy, be a sport administrator, to be his number 2, to work hand in hand and learn from him. And it was exciting. And so came over here and worked 2.5 years. And then he went back to Southern Miss as the athletic director. And I didn't know if I was going to have a shot. I had turned down a few opportunities to be an athletic director. I turned down an opportunity to be a number 2 or number 3 at a Power 5 institution because I believed in what we were building here at Troy. We had set attendance records and licensing, set attendance records, set licensing records, set ticket sales records, fundraising. Every data point that you looked at, we were inching forward. The momentum was real. Our trajectory was extremely high. We'd won conference championships in football. Baseball had been to been to the NCAA regional, and our men's and women's basketball team won the Sun Belt Conference as well as our men's and women's golf. We had 6 teams in postseason, 5 of those winning. So you looked at every single thing we were doing from a trajectory standpoint. It was exciting. And so I really believed in it. And Jeremy left, and I was very fortunate to be able to get my dream job here. And that was 2019. And I'm a COVID baby, Gene, to be quite honest. If you think about it, COVID hit. And so you're sort of having to, for 2 years, as everybody in intercollegiate athletics, it doesn't matter if you're at Texas or Texas A&M or Auburn or Troy, it was a period of time we just did not know what we were doing for about 1.5 years going through. You didn't know what was going to hit you next. And so I'm really excited about what we've been able to do the last year and coming out of this, and some of the coaches that we've had as well. But that's my abbreviated history, if you could say that's abbreviated.
Oh, that's very, very well done. Thank you. You mentioned conference realignment. Uh, in the matter of a year, the Sun Belt really became a very, very, very difficult conference now. You've got some great schools in your conference. You want to elaborate on that a
Absolutely.
little bit?
Well, that's funny you bring that up. I just left a head coaches meeting, and we talked about our visions, expectations, and the mantra for our department is the W4: winning in the classroom, winning in the community, winning on the playing field, and winning in the stands. And we want to finish top four stated in every single one of our sports in the Sun Belt Conference. And our coaches looked at me and said, we got a lot tougher. We sent 4 teams in for baseball in the NCAA regional. Couple that with Old Dominion, which is a top 35 team, Southern Miss, a top 15 team. We could have had 5 or 6 in. You look at football, but I will tell you this: I was fortunate. I was one of 3 or 4 ADs that sat on the Sun Belt Conference expansion. Our Chancellor Jack Hawkins Jr., his vision is simply incredible. He's seen the Sun Belt Conference go through this. He was chairperson back when had to have a conference realignment back in 2014, when the national media left the Sun Belt Conference for dead. MTSU, WKU, North Texas, FIU, FAU, they all left. And what was the Sun Belt Conference going to be? And through his vision, as well as Carl Benson working to get Coastal Carolina national champion baseball team, to be able to get Georgia Southern and App State won multiple FCS football national championships, to be able to get Georgia State, one of the youngest FBS, or about to be one of the youngest FCS football programs, and what they've done from a basketball standpoint was simply outstanding to bring those 4 in. And then really, as we went through this process, and Chancellor Hawkins was great about this as well, as we put all the cards on the table and said, hey, a lot of people work, as everybody knows, politics is all local. And whatever affects you is the most important. And so when we said, if we can put the greater good together, we're not going to be poached. We're going to be stronger and come out of this better. We're never going to be the most resourced conference in America, but we can be the most competitive. And we can be the most competitive in the group of 5. And I think we've proven that under the leadership of Chancellor Hawkins, as well as Commissioner Keith Gill. It's been tremendous to see that. But pulling in Southern Miss, who has such a big brand and a great fan base, pulling in Marshall to see what they have done, pulling in one of the newest and youngest FBS programs in James Madison, and how great and successful they've been, as well as Old Dominion. These were brands we did not overextend. And I'll tell you a few key points of this, Gene, is we didn't want to overexpand, but we didn't want to underexpand either. We wanted to have this go about with rivalries. We wanted to go about it with like-minded academic institutions, as well as like-minded athletic institutions. And geography was going to be huge. To be able to bus to places instead of fly. Think about the student athlete experience. Think about playing Southern Miss and them bringing 2,000 fans, 3,000 fans. That's real revenue. Marshall being able to say that, and we shored up our parts on the East as well as the West. And so to be able to have the Sun Belt Conference go to East to West divisions was simply incredible to be able to watch it. And it really goes to all the athletic directors and the CEOs that worked so hard to make this possible. But I certainly agree with you. I think the Sun Belt Conference came out much, much stronger about this. And in the Athletic, actually, Chris Vanini did a huge story about this, talking about the power of the Sun Belt Conference. And we firmly believe in that.
Well, you're right on. You have a very, very great league made up of some terrific institutions. It's going to be very, very competitive. That's for sure. You have been a busy guy the past year and a half here. Why don't you tell us about the 5 coaches that you hired, how you went through the process, who helped you, and explain to us your whole adventure here.
Well, I'll tell you this, you're absolutely right. It's been busy. And Gene, as you know, as being an athletic director for a long time and at the level that you were at as well, head coaches hires, you have to have empathy. You have to have standards, and leadership is lonely. I firmly believe that. But you have to have standards. You have to have a vision. And so some of them were through attrition on their own. Other ones were we need to get better in certain areas. But there's characteristics that you look at. And I think whenever you're looking at a program to make a change, the first thing that I do is, what can I do better? And so when you look at a program under that circumstances, if they're not winning, are we funding it correctly? Are we traveling correctly? Are we offering the facilities that need to be met? And if you are offering those, then you really need to probably look at the leadership of it. And so that's what that we looked at here as we went through that process. And I will tell you this, you need to have empathy, because that person's trying just as hard as anybody else to win. But at the same time, you're put in a situation because they believe in you, and you have to make tough decisions. And when you look at that, you want to make the right decision. And so there's several factors that go into each one. But I firmly believe in energy. I believe in energy from an individual, energy as a program. I believe in passion. I believe in recruiting. I believe in finding creative problem solvers. And one of the final things that I believe in is I believe that if you can find people that come from winning programs, doesn't matter if they're head coaches, doesn't matter if they're junior college, Division II, NAI, or top assistants, if they've been part of a winning program, if they have integrity, if they have energy, if they can recruit, if they have passion, if they can connect and fit with your program, that's what you're looking for. And I also believe that you need to go in a fully open, collaborative process. But obviously you go through that process, you make the change. And one of the first things I did, and what you started this podcast off with, was talk about your experience and the empathy that I have of not being called for 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks from UNC Asheville. The first thing that I do is I go speak to those student athletes and I tell them what's going forward. And then I ask for their opinion. What are they looking for? What did we go wrong on? How can we guide through this process? I want to hear attributes. I want to hear what they're looking for, the good, the bad, the ugly. Then I do a SWOT analysis of the program too. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats on where we need to be. I look at the overall landscape of the Sun Belt Conference, as well as FBS, G5, P5 in the state, the comparables, the comps, you should say. And we go through that. You always have a list, as you know, Gene. They say ADs always have a list in their drawer. But I will tell you this: I do think it's important. You, as an AD, you have to see around curves. You have to see around corners. You have to have a vision. And as we went through this process with football, softball, baseball, men's golf, and soccer, each one was extremely unique in what we had. There's a lot of people that fall in love with sitting head coaches. There's a lot of people that fall in, and there's a reason for that. There's a track record. There's a lot of people that fall in love with assistant coaches because they've never lost a game before. And there's a lot of people that fall in love with Power Five because you see their name and you see the program that they're attached to, the brand they are. I try never to be in a box. And if you look at it, our football coach, John Summerall, has energy, passion, connectivity. AL.com just came out with a story about him, and they said that he's the best recruiter in the state of Alabama. What Troy has done was, by all the head coaches, 75 head coaches anonymously ranked Troy for the last 6 months as being in their office and recruiting and connecting with their players and student athletes better than anybody. That's what you want to have. But
that's impressive.
In a 6-month period. We hired them in January. And you got to think about some of the schools that we have in the state. Some are in the Sun Belt, Conference USA, American, as well as the SEC, 100%. I firmly believe that you can outwork people. And we want to be creative problem solvers. But John Summerall, and the last thing I would say is we talked about energy, passion, connectivity, fit, recruiting. I want to be diverse in everything we do, diverse in mindset, diverse in skill set, diverse. If someone's only been at one place, they're probably not going to know everything that they need to know. And so you want to be diverse in everything you do. Coach Summerall came from Kentucky. He was the co-defensive coordinator. He'd been at Troy before. He'd been at Ole Miss, been at Tulane, San Diego. He's from the state of Alabama, Huntsville. He wanted this job more than anything. And so my Zoom call with him I went through this process. I probably spoke to 40 different candidates on the phone, narrowed that down to about 15 that we did Zooms, whether that was 1 o'clock in the morning with one, because that's exactly when they could meet. I'll never forget Thanksgiving, sitting outside on the deck of the patio and having 6 back to back to back. Because while Thanksgiving is a busy time, you got to think about it. In football, that's the best time they had to be able to spend an hour with me. And so Coach Summeralls and I's Zoom lasted 3.5 hours, if that tells you anything. We actually had to take 2 breaks for restroom stops. And so it was really good to be able to dive into that. And that's who we hired there. Our softball search was a little bit different. We had 4 or 5 months to go through this as our softball coach resigned at the beginning of the season. And so we had this process. We hired a Division II national champion coach. How many times can you say you hired a national championship coach who the last 2 years had the top 2-3 best teams in the nation? Baseball, we hired a pitching coach from South Carolina who had the best ERA and had 10 pitchers his last year at South Carolina that were drafted by Major League Baseball. 36 years old, one of the youngest Division I head coaches. And I'll be honest, playing baseball, not every defensive coordinator, not every offensive coordinator, not every pitching coach or hitting coach is deemed to be a good head coach. And so you have to be able to find those, to see the energy and excitement that he's brought for the student athletes has been outstanding. To be able to see our men's golf coach in our first year, hired a Division II coach from Henderson State, winning 3 consecutive tournaments and really flipping our program around. And then soccer with Robert Lane. He was the associate head coach at Georgia and had been a Division II coach before. A lot of different experiences there. We're not just hiring P5 assistants. We're not just hiring sitting head coaches. We're not just hiring, head coaches as well. It's you look at a fit, you look at a need, and what fits that. I really think it's important that you bring your staff in because they can figure out your blind spots. All of us have bias to a certain extent. And so when you really believe in that, and I have a great executive staff as well as a senior staff, to be able to bring them in is hugely important. And then also to really be able to lean on Chancellor Hawkins, who's been here 35 years, for his guidance. Troy University, we're completely aligned. And Gene, I know you know this more than anybody. It's when you have alignment from university administration to your CEO, to athletic directors, to coaches, to student athletes, to donors, it sets up when you can have a championship caliber program. And so we've been busy. And so I will tell you this, the most important thing we do is hiring people, whether that's coaches or staff, because they're the ones that are shaping and touching student athletes' lives. And that's what we're here to do. We are here to produce great citizens. What we want is a championship ring in one hand, a diploma in the other, and a job offer the next day. That's what we really strive here at Troy University to have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned your football coach as being a great recruiter and a great communicator. What are his special qualities about being able to do that effectively?
Well, I'll tell you this, just his personality. And not everybody's cut out for that. I will be honest. I'm a big believer in you can't fake it in interviews. You got to bring it. Student athletes want the juice. Now, again, there are certain sports that might not be the case. Tennis, golf, you don't need to be super over the top necessarily with emotion or energy. But guess what? In today's climate, it's different than when I played in the early 2000s than it is now. You just saw the NCAA ban props for baseball. You saw people coming out of the dugout and going crazy and doing booms when they hit home runs. Sports are meant to be played with emotion and meant to have passion. Obviously, you got to do it the right way. But our head coach in particular, his personality is one that he can connect with anybody. Doesn't matter if you're $1 million donor or if it doesn't matter if you're Joe Schmo just off the street. But one of the things that matters to me, and it's something that I didn't realize as much, but when you sit down with the men's golf team, the soccer, baseball, football, men's golf, and you ask for them what they're looking for, there's a connection. They want a connection with their head coach. And I'm going to give you an example. Playing from 99 to 2004, I was redshirted 1 year. If my head coach had me over at his house for a dinner or a social, that would have been considered to be sort of taboo. It would have been awkward to be quite honest. Like that wasn't something that you did. Nowadays, if head coaches don't have student athletes over at their house, they're considered out of touch. You want that connectivity. You want the partners, the wives, the spouses, the kids to be around it. You want them to be all in. They are role models. And so I just think that you have to be able to connect with people on a level, and you have to be authentic. You have to be genuine. And that's what we hope to be able to find in our leaders.
Okay. All right. On another subject, I like to think that I know something about wine, but in reading up on you, I found that Troy is putting together a sponsorship with Mano Wine. Would you explain to our listeners what Mano wine is?
Well, first off, Gene, I'm going to have to get you a bottle and send it to you, courtesy of me. All right. Courtesy of
Thank
Troy as
you.
well.
Yes.
But one of the things that we're looking at, again, I've been in athletics and as we went through it, my background's in external marketing, communication, sales, fundraising before I got to the chair. One of the greatest things about this is I get to engage with our student athletes, sport oversight as well. And so as you go through this process of what's the next step, what are the next things out there? Consumables, which is a new word, to be quite honest. It's not something that when I was a deputy AD, we even talked about consumables. But the next market really for fans is being able to purchase things that you consume, whether that is water, whether that is having your own spirit, beer, wine, candles, whatever that is. And so we got in early. We're the first university in the state of Alabama. We actually had help. The ABC board actually changed their policy where now wine outside the state of Alabama can be shipped in for the first time ever. And so that's why we did this. But we partnered with Manos Wine, which has partnered with LSU, the New Orleans Saints, Major League Baseball, Clemson. It's made from some of the great vineyards in California. And so it's a great Cabernet. We have two different versions of this, but it comes in commemorative bottles. And it's just a fun way for our fans to be able to celebrate and have a really good bottle of wine and be able to celebrate Troy University. And so there's two different bottles. One has the Power Tea on it. The other one you can actually make with, and it has the university's insignia on it for whatever you want. Whatever year you graduated, whatever your anniversary, you're able to sketch it on there, or etch it, I should say, on it. But it's a neat way to be able to get into the way of consumables with wine. Again, we're hoping to be able to expand that out to some premium spirits, as well as maybe even to some white wine as well. But I will tell you this, I'll send you a bottle and you tell me how good it is. All right.
That's a deal. That's a deal, Brent.
Absolutely.
Hey, let's go back to you again. You went through COVID. It was a very difficult time, particularly for a new AD. ADs don't get much vacation anyway, with players being around, most of the year. What do you do for fun? What do you do other than spend time with those two beautiful sons of yours? What do you
Yes.
do for fun?
Well, I will tell you this. What I do is I'm a member of, sit on the board of ADs for Christ, and it's a like-minded group that gets together. We have a conference every year. But as I was listening to one of the speakers talk, John Gordon, what's your strategic plan for your family? And I was like, wow, we all talk about strategic plans and business plans and revenue growth and those things, but what are some pillars we have? And so I didn't want to do a strategic plan for our family, but instead I did pillars. What are pillars of my family? And then I was like, what are pillars of my life? And so it's really this: it's faith, it's family, it's work, and it's health. And I know that's funny looking at me. I'm not I'm not the skinniest guy around, but I would tell you this: it's faith, it's family, it's work, and it's health. And if it doesn't fit in those four buckets, Gene, it really doesn't matter. And so pouring myself into my job, pouring myself into my family, pouring myself into my kids, that's what is so fun. I will tell you this: it's called the Great Resignation, right? After COVID, when everybody came back, people are leaving all professions, but in particular, they're leaving college athletics. And we've done this to ourselves, but it's also a shame. And so as I took stock of that, having young kids and having an athletic department that is young and having a lot of people who have spouses that are young and having kids, a lot of people are leaving college athletics because of the time demands, the work demands, and the stress, the work-life balance, which is a farce. You just make it what it is. It's not going to be balanced 50%. And so, Gene, over the last really 6 months, it sort of just hit me. Let's lean into that. Let's be the most cooperative group we can have. Let's have kids around. Let's have kids at practice and kids in the office. Let's have families. We want to be able to lean into this. I don't want people to leave because they need to feel like they got to spend more time with their kids or their wives or they're being tugged. Let's make this the most accommodating. Now, again, we're going to set our vision. We're going to set goals. We're going to meet those. Again, fundraising, sponsorships, licensing tickets, compliance, academic, community service. We're going to set those goals high, but we're going to do it in a way that people can really embrace their families, embrace their kids. And there's nothing better than to be able to see your kids run around and enjoy your life, your work that they think is their playhouse. That's what's fun. And again, I think we have to rethink a lot of things that we're doing right now, because if not, those people are going to leave. And so that goes back to the question. I have those 4 buckets: faith, family, work, and health. And if it doesn't fit in those, and so my kids are really, really good at their sports, and I'm very fortunate of that. And so vacations, we're not going to Italy, and we're not going to the coast, and we're not going overseas or anything else. I'm spending them at a ball field with about 100 degrees, with Nats doing baseball, softball, flag football, basketball, whatever that is. But that's really what it is. And so they come to all of our events, all of my events. And so to be able to pour into them, it's really exciting. But I will tell you this. I think in order for you to be the best leader, to be the best husband, to be the best partner, to be the best athletic director, you really have to limit distractions. And you got to make sure what your true north is. And I think that really came from the COVID, as it gave us a great reflection of what's important. But I want our staff, I want our coaches to fully embrace the family aspect, to fully embrace their kids, to fully embrace having their parents come to games. And so I think that's what will hopefully set us apart from other departments.
That's great philosophy. One of my idols is Coach Vince Lombardi, of the great Green Bay Packer teams of the 60s. And I talked to Willie Davis and Paul Hornung and Bill Curry and a lot of those former players. And they say that Coach Lombardi used to tell them every day, there are 3 things that should be most important in your life: your God, your family and your close friends, and the Green Bay Packers. And if you live your life making decisions based on those principles, you're going to be right a heck of a lot of times. And it's great to hear you reiterate that, and add health, because there's a lot of pressure today on ADs, on coaches, on student athletes. So mental health is extremely important.
I think mental health, I think emotional health, I think physical health is so important. And what are you doing to pour into yourself? So if you want to be the best coach, if you want to be the best husband, the best wife, the best brother, the best partner, the best spouse, the best leader, the best assistant director of compliance, you have to pour into yourself. And that means you have to be the best person physically, spiritually, emotionally. You need to have, you need to be reading, you need to adapt to everything. And so I just think that for a long time, that has not been the case. And so I'm glad you brought up Vince Lombardi. I will tell you this. We can learn. I have learned from watching you at Boston College and what you were able to do and build that program. But everybody that comes before you, we stand on giant shoulders. And so, we can continue to build. And I think that's what's so exciting about this profession. Bill Curry, for example, Georgia State, obviously was the interim AD and then was the head football coach. And obviously he's the head coach at Georgia Tech and then at Alabama. He is a visionary leader. And I've had the chance to be able to listen to him and just to hear him talk about his wife, his family. his faith, to talk about his vision. Man, that is what makes athletics so great, is you can shape people. You're not telling them what to think, you're not telling them how to think, but you're giving them that threshold. You're giving them that ability to really go out there. And I think that's why it's so important today that college athletics matters, because it brings people together, whether it's in the stands, whether it's on the university, or whether it's in that locker room. College athletics brings people together. I think we need that more now than ever.
Very well said, my friend. Brent, in speaking with you off camera, you mentioned that you have some initiatives coming up. They sound to me to be terrific. Can you share them with us?
Absolutely. Well, three that I'm really, really proud of is one, it's our study abroad initiative. It's our Total Trojan, which is 100%. Everybody talks about 100% graduation, but we want to do 100% job placement as part of it. And then our name, image, and likeness plan and how we've crafted that. But the first one is a directive from our university, from Chancellor Hawkins, with the study abroad. We want to be able to offer over a 4-year period each one of our student athletes the ability to go overseas, to be able to have a study abroad class, to be able to compete either in camps, clinics, or in competition, and it be fully funded by the university, by the athletic department. Troy University is Alabama's international university, and we just feel like this is a way to differentiate ourselves with our student athlete experience. And so being able to offer that, our men's basketball team just got back from Costa Rica. Our men's golf team is going to the Bahamas. We're looking at different areas to be able to really expand to Latin America, South America, the Bahamas, as well as overseas. But to be able to have, when you're sitting in the living room and you're talking about, not only am I going to take care of your son or daughter, but we're going to take them overseas and we're going to be able to have them give back. And when they're going to study abroad, they're going to orphanages, they're building things, they're giving back, they're holding clinics, holding camps. That excites me to be able to give back. And that's what sports is about. And then our name, image, and likeness plan, being able to partner with Open Doors and Brander and Playfly is simply outstanding. But what we did is a little bit different, is we partnered on campus with our College of Business. And so we're offering the ability now to be able to have a certification course. And it's going to be all based through our Sorrell College of Businesses. We're offering a 4 session program that's focused on tax implications, social media, personal branding, NCA implications, and then how to partner with vendors, how to partner with companies and sponsors. And once they go through each one of these 1-hour classes, which are modules online for our student athletes, they're then going to have a certificate from the Sorrell College of Business, which then will allow them to be able to go to an entrepreneurship class. Everything that we are providing for our student athletes is already on campus. We have an idea bank. We're having a person who's running, the director of name, image, and likeness, or director of the idea bank, is actually going to be a personal mentor for our coaches, for our student athletes, to be able to set up one-on-one time with them, to be able to understand. And her background is in sports as well as entrepreneurship and small business is extremely exciting. And then the last initiative that we have, and we talk about it, this is through our strategic plan, is we want all of our student athletes to graduate. But one of the things that we really want to have happen is we want a diploma in one hand, a championship ring in the other. And then beginning their junior year, we're going to place our student athletes with alumni. And it's going to be called the Total Trojans. We want 100% job placement. People go to college to better their careers, to better their chances of having a career. And so when they leave Troy University, we want them to have an amazing experience on the field, in the classroom, but we want to set them up for success where they have multiple job offers. And we're going to use our network through Playfly, through our sponsors, through our donors, through our alumni network. We just brought in our alumni association back into the athletic department for the first time in a while. And so we're really excited about those 3 key initiatives that we really hope are going to pay huge dividends for our student athletes. Because at the end of the day, we talked about study abroad, we talked about name, image, and likeness, and we talked about job placement. That's all about our student athletes. And hopefully we're providing the best student athlete experience possible.
Wow. What a great program you put together in such a short time. Brent, I tell you what, you talk about enthusiasm. You sure have it. And I know that your coaches have it, and it'll trickle down to the players and the fans and everybody else. Hey, you know what? I knew you'd be great. You were better than great. I'll tell you what. If I was being recruited, I'd want to come to Troy.
Hey, that's the hope. It starts with good leadership and alignment. Gene, you know that better than anybody, and so we're really excited and appreciative of where we are. We really are.
We're out of time on this week's On the Fly College Edition. I'm your host, Gene DiFilippo. Thanks for your time this time, and we'll see you next time.